Hey, what's up guys? It's Oakley and I'm here with Indie Pride.
Hey, what's going on, guys?
And we're doing a 3 versus 2 massive siege of Constantinople on the second level of escalation, so there's going to be a lot of holes in the walls. And this is going to be awesome. We're going to be the Eastern Roman Empire trying to defend the city to the last. We have a lot of catapults and all that set up. But you can see the opponents have 3 Ostrogothic army, so a bit historical for their marauding through the Balkans, the Gothic Wars. And I just want to point out the little details, or the massive details to this battlefield are just blowing me away right now.
Yeah, the city of Constantinople in this game is absolutely beautiful. I really love all the effort and attention they put into Ravenna and Constantinople and some of the unique cities. I was really excited to play this battle because you guys have probably seen our Fall of Athens video, and I thought that was one of the best videos I've done on Rome 2, and this replay is absolutely insane. Again, we're playing 2v3 and on a city as epic as Constantinople. It was just a lot of fun to try to defend it to the end, and this is going to be a long replay. Strap in, boys, but it is really epic. It is worth staying to the end. It comes down to literally the last couple seconds of the battle.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually go ahead and position my camera back where the battle is going to start. And Indie Pride was kind of new to the way escalation works, so he has a bunch of his guys over on the walls here. We'll get a pan from the defender's perspective, and I'm ready to go when you are.
Alright, 3, 2, 1, press play. Yeah, so like he was saying, kind of new to the siege escalation and didn't realize that the walls had already taken a ton of damage, so they're at 85%, and I moved some of my elite Balistari up to the walls, getting some shots off on the Gothic Palatinate defectors and on the edge there. But you can see these walls are now at 95% damage. Already lost some Balistari here, and these are 800 talent crossbow units, so pretty important units. You don't want to be losing them early on, and then he's going to get a bunch of catapult shots into the walls. And you can just see me lose about half of my crossbowmen right at the start of the battle. So not a good start for me, not exactly what I wanted. There's 75 men left in one Balistari, and looks like there are 86 left in the other. So yeah, that's not what I wanted to do, but I do get a great shot off with my catapult. Kill 20 Gothic Palatinate defectors. Now, one thing that's really important about this battle is that because we're on Siege Escalation 2, Constantinople is already in ruins, a bunch of holes in the walls and such, but the biggest thing about Siege Escalation is that you get a huge morale and melee attack debuff. As you can see, my Elite Balistari actually have 0 melee damage, and my Protectores Domesticae have 14 melee attack, and some of my other units have 18 melee attack. So they have a really big morale penalty and a really big melee attack penalty, and that means that the Gothic Palatinate defectors that have 62 melee attack can absolutely run through us in melee combat.
Yeah, so CA has done a really good job actually of trying to balance out these sieges. We thought we were going to have to kind of handicap ourselves by making it 2 versus 3, but actually, as Indy said, with all the holes in the wall, the fact that the just morale and all the stats of the defenders is actually going to be super low, especially on Escalation 2, kind of more than makes up for the fact that, yeah, we're outnumbered, so it's going to make it even harder to defend this city. And already on my side, the walls are starting to collapse. And I think right off the get-go, we weren't really sure how to defend this, and so what we decided to do was try and concentrate our forces. The idea was eventually we're going to fall back, and so now you can see the enemy making their way up towards the walls, and we just have a couple actually archers and Sagittari over on my flank of the battlefield that I'm defending, but I'm really not trying to hold it as much as possible. Most of my forces are going to be in the rear, cavalry patrolling in the back, pikemen set up, and heavy axemen just waiting in the rear, and then we're taking charge of some of the catapults on the walls and just trying to do as much damage as possible.
Yep. One thing that I really wanted to do right here was sneak some cavalry out. One thing that I've noticed, people kind of get tunnel vision in siege battles, and they just focus on their section of the walls, and especially on a map this huge. Sometimes, especially kind of inexperienced Total War players, not always going to look at the mini-map and see where your units are. So one thing I've always loved doing in siege battles is using cavalry aggressively and attacking enemy army outside the walls with cavalry, because a lot of players don't bring armies that are suited to defend against cavalry attacks, and cavalry on Attila very, very strong. And so I saw, hey, look at all these elite Germanic archers. I'm going to charge into melee here, and actually my guys are going to be hidden as they move through the woods. He's not going to notice it. They were only visible for a little bit as they crossed the open plain, and then they got directly into the fort. So what I'm going to do is just go straight for all those elite Germanic archers and try to kill them. And whoa, I just pressed insert, and that is not what I wanted at all. Let's see if I can actually, I don't know why. I pressed insert and it went to a different unit than I wanted it to. But gonna go into melee combat here with the Scole Palatine, and they should be able to crush archers in melee combat. Got a really good charge off here, and he's kind of isolated at this point. A lot of his units are already up near the walls, but he is gonna run some of his archers away. And one thing you're going to notice here, as soon as he turns some of his archers around, the bonus versus large for archers, that plus 10 melee, or that plus 10 missile damage, does work. Like, I charge in here expecting to have an easy time killing all these archers, but these 3 archers get away. He turns around, and as soon as he starts shooting flaming arrows into my cavalry, I'm going to have to pull out because I'm going to lose an entire unit of cavalry to these flaming volleys.
So we've done a nice counterattack, but the enemy is at the walls. Some of the enemy general actually forces are going through the gate itself, so they're definitely penetrating through the walls. And this is where I'm going to have a couple archer divisions actually moving up into these positions, trying to get some counter shots, clear the defender or the attackers who are now coming up over the walls. So we're going to try and do as much damage, isolate those guys, secure the towers, defend them, allow them to do as much damage as possible, but it's not really going to be coming to much. You can see on the very east or north side of the map, I should say, the defenders have basically blown through this sector. They had catapults, they destroyed sections of the wall, the towers, infantry poured through the gates. I had to abandon this, and so now it's going to be again a case of falling back and defending. You can see some of our cavalry in the nice open space that you have between the walls of Constantine and the Theodosian walls, a nice open ground where we can actually come in and reform some of our reserve cavalry and reserve infantry for the second fight.
And that's one of the really nice things about Constantinople, defending it in general. When you're playing on Siege Escalation 1 or 2, infantry is probably not going to be what wins you the battle. On a map like Constantinople, having this much space inside a city on previous Total Wars is unheard of. You never have this space to maneuver, so cavalry generally not that good defending. But in a game like Attila, where you have this kind of space in Constantinople, and the fact that melee cavalry is so strong in general, I would say that the builds we brought probably weren't the correct ones. If we just spammed cavalry, it would probably be more efficient than what we brought here, because the melee attack value that we have for our swords is pathetic. Again, 18 melee attack. They are going to get crushed by Gothic Palatina defectors. They have a huge infantry advantage, but we have cavalry, and they didn't bring a lot of cavalry at all. So we can kind of dictate the pace of the engagements inside these walls, and if we get continuous good charges off on the swords, even Gothic Palatina defectors with 62 melee attack will die to repeated hammer and anvils and charges from the front.
Yeah, and I'm actually looking at your sector of the battlefield where, again, we've had to yield the entrance to the city. Some of our own forces are here. You can see a couple units with the Cairo banner there trying to hold firm, secure the city. Some of our, I think, crossbowmen are actually going to form up here. Some of my own crossbowmen have tried to secure this main passageway, but again, we're going to have to give up in the face of all of these defenders just pouring in here. But they are starting to take a little bit of damage from our towers. The more they sit and wait, we can pick them off, but it is going to be a long, grinding fight for us to try and reduce their numbers.
Yeah, so what's going to happen here is he's going to pour a bunch of the Gothic Palatina defectors into the walls and just kind of sit there. And like Oakley said, our towers are whittling them away. Towers do a lot of damage in this game. You can see actually all his Gothic Palatina defectors are down 10, 20 men. So that's been pretty good for me. But he is still shooting artillery into my army, and actually just landed a huge shot here on my elite Ballistari, who have just gotten really beat up this game, and I feel kind of bad for them. They have not had a good time so far, but it's surprising. The elite Ballistari, 65 missile damage, a ton of armor piercing. So even with low numbers, if they're given time to shoot into a melee engagement, they can do a lot of damage. So even if with only 47 men left in that unit, I want to keep that alive as much as possible, because they can still do a lot of work for me. But I'm going to have to keep pulling back. The catapults are shooting at me, still losing guys, and I just want to give space for my cavalry to get really good charges off. Now,
and on
if
that,
I look at...
Yeah, on that note, I had to mention a couple of things.
Sure.
So we're getting pincered on both sides. The enemies have a foothold, and they're actually coming through the center, through the main gate, and they're going to try and get to our capture point. We're going to try and reform and stop them from doing that. Your cavalry have come back from the outside, and specifically these Gothic Palatina defectors in the center. We're going to try and sandwich them, prevent them from getting up to this last position in the middle. Because
you're going to get a really good charge off the Magister Militum right there.
Yeah, so our objective now was the opponents are just swarming the flanks, and so we're going to try and eat up all of these units in the center who are kind of isolated, trying to go for strategic positions, and we're just landing devastating blows on these guys. I mean, they're down to about, half strength and tumbling, and now you see all these pikemen and spearmen pouring in through there. That's a huge cluster that we figured, if we can isolate that force, then that's going to be a huge win for us. We've already killed 2 of these defectors, so it's all going to be about, isolating specific units, and now I'm going to have some of my own Palatina, double silver here, holding up this entire enemy formation in the burnt out forest here, and their goal is just going to be to keep these guys from pressing forward, so they have nowhere to go, and we're going to now swarm in on this small isolated group that got detached from the main assault force.
Yeah, definitely a mistake from our opponents there to let these guys come in by themselves. They, like Oakley said, they are very isolated, and we are going to be able to completely surround them and do a ton of damage, maybe even rout all these units off the field. If you had any doubts about the power of cavalry and Attila, you shouldn't. A Magister Militum and a Tagmata Cavalry, arguably the most overpowered unit in the game at the moment, just wrecked the Palatina defectors there, who have 62 or 65 melee attack. They're a really good sword unit, but have absolutely no chance against units like Tagmata Cavalry and the Magister Militum. So he lost 2 very expensive sword units right there. Good for us, and now we're just going to try to isolate these pikes. Now, of course, you have to be very careful engaging against them. They are pikes, can't send cavalry up the front into that. But one thing we are going to do is, it looks like Oakley's going to send in some Sagittari who are already out of ammunition, tie down the elite Ostrogothic pikemen, and then when they drop their pikes, then you charge in with the Tagmata Cavalry, and we can do a lot of damage to these pikes here.
So yeah, we're going to start to exploit that pike wall that's going to try and move up against our guys, but my guys are now going to shoot the gap through here. And this is where the opponent does not want to be, so here we're going to land a nice strike. The pikes in the back, the spears cannot move forward. I'm going to countercharge or bait those guys. Infantry are going to be moving into the burnt out force in the back, and now look at my Magister Militum. He's going to be going after all those guys. Your dudes as well, landing tons of strikes on these forces.
I'm just trying to get the bows off the field as quickly as possible. You do kind of have to be scared when they have mass bows like this. I mean, it is very nice to get charges into the bows, and I should be able to wrap this up really quickly. But as you saw earlier, when I charged a mass amount of bows, they got a bunch of fire arrows into me, and that's where I lost most of my cavalry. Now, they don't quite have the open space to run away that they did earlier on in the battle, so now I'm just going to be able to tie them down in melee. And as they run away, they're going to actually get destroyed by our oil, and let's see if you can actually see some of that. Maybe they already captured the gate, so no oil dropping on them, but they did lose a lot of guys right there. All the bows are going to die, and this entire force that he sent in unsupported going to get isolated and destroyed by our cavalry, which is big for us, because the only way we're going to win this is if we isolate units and destroy sections of the army. If they sent everything they had at us at once, we'd be in really big trouble.
Yeah, and at this point, Indy and I are in the chat. We're furiously trying to break these isolated units, and now we're seeing sort of a chain route happening here, and so this is our chance, and your cavalry is going to come back, and we can't let any of these guys even have a chance to reform. So we waited until the infantry formations blinked, we exploited the gaps, and then we just all out massacred them on all sides. Now it's going to be a matter of just, killing every single one of these guys, not allowing them to reform. But that's not to say we're winning everywhere. I mean, we've completely destroyed the central army group. But if you look over on my old position, the enemy forces are moving up slowly, long pike lines, backing that up with Germanic hunters who are going to be strategically pushing my guys back. And then if we look on the far side, they're actually going to be doing a massive push down the main causeway. And actually their cavalry are clearing out these positions, and they almost have a straight shot to the Imperial capital, which we weren't actually prepared to defend at this point. So you're going to be rushing your infantry into that position.
Yeah, we just want to block off that causeway, prevent him from advancing, and this is where the next part of the engagement is going to happen. The middle army has mostly died, although he has some units still left alive, but not too much. The guy that was over on your side at the beginning, he's kind of a little scared to advance. Like, he was kind of hesitant to do a whole lot. Like, he put a bunch of holes in the walls and moved in his guys, but he's been kind of slow moving forward. I think at this point he probably could have done well to just rush the capital city, and it would have been hard for us to deal with it, but he's actually going to make a mistake and not going for it and just kind of advance slowly, and that's going to give us time to start isolating more sections of the army. So now we're going to focus on this causeway on the left, about where the first Ostrogoth army came in through, and we're going to get some engagements here with the Eastern Armored Legio. He's just going to plop a Germanic spear here, and I'm going to start throwing some Plumbata darts at him, do some damage there, get them off the field as soon as I can. But I didn't want to move up too much here because I don't want to let the noble Germanic cavalry just charge directly into my swords. I wanted to wait till my cavalry was closer. As you can see, it's still off in the distance. I wanted to make sure I had my cavalry to reinforce. So I'm going to not actually engage in melee combat for a bit here, wait for my cavalry to get around, and then plop them on this side street down by the dock and prevent his cavalry from flanking me from behind. Because if he got rear charges off while I was engaged, this infantry blob would just die, and that would be a massive issue for us.
Yeah, and we already just proved how devastating cavalry can be on infantry, but that's okay for the opponents. They have a lot more men than us. For us, that type of charge would be absolutely brutal. And I'm threatening a lot of the positions up here, keeping the opponent over on the right side from advancing. If he wants to move into these cities, then I have heavy axe guards and then also Klibinari ready to countercharge. So I'm checking his assaults, and that's kind of and have pikes at other choke points, and that's kind of what's forcing him to move up very slowly, piecemeal. I think it's the cavalry presence and the kind of how they were scared that we absolutely thrashed and destroyed that one isolated army, so it kind of makes sense to move up staggered.
Yeah.
But it's to our advantage where now we can focus on these other detachments, and it looks like you've engaged on one of those weakened spear units.
Yeah, so those Germanic spearmen should be relatively easy to kill, but now I want to focus on the pikes, because in the causeways, in these kind of narrow city streets, pikes can be pretty scary to fight against. They have gold chevrons, actually. Definitely don't want to attack that from the front. I would get wrecked. So I have the 2 ballistari that are now both pretty depleted, shooting into the front of them. The Ostrogothic pikemen don't have a great shield block chance, and their armor is actually pretty decent, but their shield block chance isn't that high. So I'm just going to try to shoot into them a bit. One thing that I really like to do is when he's going to move up these pike units, just run away with the swords. I don't have to engage that from the front. I can continue kiting, get some plumbata throws off, and just pull away. And as you kind of move up your pikemen, they kind of can sometimes get out of position, and that's going to allow me to get flanking charges off. So just try to pull him into a side causeway here, maybe turn his flank to one of my swords or to my crossbowmen, and I might be able to do a lot of damage there. But definitely don't engage the Ostrogothic pikemen from the front, because that would be very ill-advised.
Yeah, and again, we're going to use the terrain to our advantage here. Pikemen are great when they can face in one direction, and so that's why you see him stopped here at this intersection, because he can't go either way. That'll allow us to get us a flank, and so that's why we're securing all these strategic positions. On the other side of the map, I'm also securing a bunch of those strategic positions, but as the archers get closer, I'm forced to fall back. They're actually rolling some catapults into the city as well, so I'm very, very scared that that might actually force our hand on that side, so I'm slowly pulling back, but very strategically. I'm even sending some of my Tagmata cavalry over on this side. I found a little gap where I could sneak in between the Gothic defenders and some of the spears and pikes. And so what we're going to try and do is exploit that, and I'm telling Indy basically that we need to find another isolated group to destroy. Destroying pikemen is going to be a little hard, so maybe what we can do is destroy these defectors over here. And so this is going to be, like Indy said, the sector of the battlefield that we're focusing on isolating next.
Yeah, and that's a very good flanking maneuver from the Tagmata cavalry. Actually already up to 172 kills, only lost 10 men so far. Gonna have to be careful because the Tagmata are isolated, but so are those pike units. And you can see here, he's pulling this elite Ostrogothic pikeman down this side causeway, which suddenly turns its flank. Get a couple shots off with the ballistari into their rear, doing some damage there. The shield block chance won't help when they're getting shot in the back. Alright, so yeah, those Ostrogothic pikemen are actually going to make the decision to get charged in the rear by my cavalry and not get shot by the ballistari. But it's they're kind of in between a rock and a hard place right now, not in a good position, pretty isolated. He's not really helping them out, to be honest. He has a bunch of cavalry just kind of sitting around doing nothing in diamond formation in the back there. But then you get another great rear charge off on this pike unit that didn't turn around, and then you just go back and charge another pike unit again. So this Tagmata making a huge impact on the battle already, and there were some really good hammer and anvils right there.
Yeah, it looks like they're at 255, and the enemy is now finally responding. I'm going to pull out and kind of charge right through this pike line. This is my exit out of this potential trap as the opponent moves in. And so now we're going to just crash through this wall and then pull out, and then I think you're going to commit your infantry to actually cover the retreat of the Tagmata, who are perhaps some of the most important units. I think the cavalry, like you said before, definitely the units we need. And here come the spearmen chasing after me.
Yeah, so you just wanted to pull through that pike, the remains of that pike unit. To be honest, there isn't much of a pike unit left anymore. But yeah, after that, there's only 30 men in that pike unit. I can engage and kill these Germanic spearmen. And it's going to be a blobby right here, but he doesn't really have a way to punish me at the moment. He doesn't have any cavalry in my flank. He does have these infantry that he probably should have already started moving up, and he is going to start doing that. But I don't remember. Do you engage with this Tagmata to prevent these swords from getting charges on me?
Yeah, this is the crisis that we're facing. Is, you know, we did have, okay, we isolated 2 pike units, but now here's a whole bunch of infantry, and so I'm kind of saying, okay, we have to target this. It looks like they're going to charge. So you can see me starting to pull actually all of my available cavalry back to this position. In the distance, the enemy is moving in, so I'm going to try and slow him down, put some pressure on him. But the main threat is going to be these guys, and so I think what I decide to do is sacrifice my Tagmata. They're at 280 kills. We'll see what they're at after this charge, but I decided to sacrifice them into these units. I mean, they're unbraced, they're running. This is the best time for us to knock out as many troops as possible.
Yeah, now do you let them stay in melee combat, or do you just charge and pull out again?
For a while, yeah. I just needed to wait for my Magister Militum to get into the fight.
Yeah.
So now he's actually going to be coming into the fight. I'm kind of holding ground for my Klibinari. Wow.
They got 100 kills off that charge. against elite swords. It's just ridiculous, but it's awesome.
And so now I have more Clibinari coming in. All of my cavalry for inside Constantinople descended on these guys. They do have some archer fire coming in, but I mean, we absolutely, wow, they're gone. These units are all gone.
Yeah, so I mean that could not have gone better for us. And I mean, if you just compare that to something that could have happened in Rome too, I mean that would have never happened. Like cataphracts charging into the front of Roman infantry, you maybe would get like 30 kills, take some javelin fire, lose some guys. But here the cavalry just kind of runs through an entire section of his army. 6 Gothic Palatinate defectors all routed. That move was huge for us. And on a map that's like more compact, where there's not as much space to maneuver cavalry, might not have worked. But on Constantinople, it was perfect. And so yeah, if you're going to be defending a city like Constantinople, definitely bring a lot of cavalry. But yeah, the Tagmata and the Cataphracts, the Clibinari right there, did so much work, and actually prevented my infantry from getting surrounded, which would have been probably a death toll for us. Probably would have lost us the game. But really good use of the cavalry right there, and it's kept us in the fight.
Yeah,
there is another fight going on over here, though, that's very important, down by the docks. Noble Germanic horsemen, and maybe his general as well. Oh no, his general's not engaged yet. But the noble Germanic horsemen and some spear units tried to get around me behind my flank, and I just committed all my melee cavalry and some of my swords to prevent them from getting around. And I do have one Ballistari at the walls here, trying to shoot down into his Germanic noble horsemen, doing a lot of damage there as well.
Yeah, so we did a good charge here, but I kind of wasted, or not wasted, my cavalry are exhausted at this point. I lost my Tagmata finally, and his infantry, the remainder, are chasing after my horsemen. I baited him into the woods, and then now I'm going to turn about and just charge in and finish the job, pretty much.
Where's that cavalry unit you're talking about?
This is going to be over towards the walls in the middle.
Oh, I see. Yeah, and you have some Sagittari that I believe are already out of ammunition there, and one Palatina pulling away here. But yeah, the thing that I've mentioned a couple times already, like we really can't take melee engagements against their swords. So I cannot stress enough how important it was to get those Gothic Palatinate defectors off the field with those cavalry charges. If they had engaged in melee against my swords, my entire army would have probably broken in a minute or less. Like, they would have had no chance. 18 melee attack for 62, generally not going to go very well. So all those sword units routing definitely shifted things in our favor. You can see the balance bar actually. It started out maybe like 1/7 in our favor. Now it's about 1/3, and it's continuing to climb. We're getting back into this. Like, we have a chance to win this for sure.
And just as you say that, my Magister Militum goes down, trying to fight off those Gothic defectors. So yeah, I'm throwing away a lot of cavalry trying to get those guys away. But you can see the entire army that was on the right flank basically killed. And we're having a lot of nice supporting fire from the towers, which weren't destroyed yet, helping us clean up this fight. But the rest of my forces on the left are being pushed back. Some of the enemy forces on the far left have tried to push up, unsupported. And they're going to be facing my pike, so I'm going to get some good kills. So we're able to check their advance there, but if you look at the enemy general, he's actually saying fuck this. He's given up on the army on your side, and he's just going to be running into the city. I can actually even see some of the citizens now looking at the cavalry force, and they're actually going to be chasing after this this general. This is really funny.
Yeah, so he's going to pull that Gothic general away and basically go for the capture point, start trying to get some battlefield-wide morale bonuses. But I keep trying to chase him with my cavalry. I do have cavalry left alive, and you can see Oakley pointed it out to me. He was like, "Oh, he's going for the capture point. We got to go get him." So yeah, I'm gonna pull all my cavalry out of there. They are exhausted, and his general is actually not. I don't think. Yeah, it's very tired. I'm not sure why. They haven't even been fighting, but he's gonna pull away and try to start capturing those points here in the center of the city. Now I haven't actually shown downtown Constantinople, and here is Hagia Sophia, really burnt. I think that the siege escalation is really cool, but it is a little ridiculous that every single building in the entire city is completely burned to a crisp. Not sure that's how a siege would really work in reality, because everyone would be dead if every building was burned. But regardless, it does look really cool. And yeah, he's going to try to capture the central plaza right here, which wouldn't win them the victory point. But back here, Hagia Sophia, that is the victory point. And if they ever manage to pull units back here and try to capture that, if we don't defend it, they will win the battle after a countdown timer.
So the general is pushing through there, and that's kind of forcing us to pull back. As we pull back, the enemy forces are going to be moving forward. They're going to try and capture this point over in the front, sort of the garrison fort up by the front walls. And the more they can take those out, it's going to have actually sort of bonuses for them if they can take that out. So they're going to try and do as much damage to us as possible. And here we are. This is going to be kind of wrapping up the first stage of the battle. So most of our troops are going to be falling back in the pursuit of that enemy general who's going for the capital city. The enemy forces are going to be moving up. The only action that's really going to take place is me trying to get these guys off the capture point, this garrison, and I'm trying to buy time for my towers to do damage to him. I'm going to have a lot of feints and charges and try and pull these guys out, but it's going to be almost for nothing. So they're going to give up, and they're going to try and chase after these infantry in this position. But again, the player who's moving up is being very, very strategic. And actually, it looks like we will get a little bit of action here as I try and pull back. A lot of my crossbowmen have been kept back here, and they're going to be decimating some of these Thracian warriors from the front. My Palatina are going to try and engage. But more of his troops are rushing in, especially these Thracians. They're going to cut up my infantry, so I'm going to try and watch a little bit of that. And it's a good move on his part to lead the assault with that. And so he's going to be actually catching most of my guys, and he just destroyed my Palatina. So he's catching most of my guys, yeah, before they can retreat. Here comes my my Clibinari trying to come to the rescue of my units. He just broke through Thracian warriors, I mean doing tons of damage to them. I'm going to try and continue on through to save my Ballistari and my other units, but no. That's it. So the last of our defenders on the outskirts of the town have been destroyed.
Oh, that charge.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thracian warriors absolutely wreck enemy infantry units, but when they get charged by cavalry, things go a little bit better. They do have the Plumbata, which I think is weird considering they have a two-handed sword. But yeah, Clibinari actually gonna get cut up there. The Thracian warriors might actually still have a bonus first large, but they're gonna end up routing as well. And we're just gonna try to pull back here because there's not much left we want to do out on the outskirts of this as he pulls his general away from combat.
Yeah, so now we're going to go ahead and skip forward to another part of the battlefield. It's mostly going to be us reforming at the center of the battle, sort of towards the inner parts of Constantinople, and then we'll actually get back to you as the enemy forces move up because there is some downtime. So we'll see you guys shortly.
Alright, so here we are. I'm going to press play on the replay again. Hitara guards out here on the flank. You can see that one of the Ostrogoth players has started moving up all his units, and some of these guys are getting isolated again, kind of not the best strategy for them to just isolate some of their units when they have us outnumbered. But they're going to move forward with some pikes here. The Hitara Guard are going to run in, and they only have 23 melee attack because of the escalation, so not super impressive. But I do have one of my Ballistari here shooting into the Gothic pikemen, which only have 15 armor, so going to shred through them with the high armor piercing of the Ballistari. You can see them starting to rack up kills. They're at 141 right now, and they're getting some really good volleys off. On second thought, I should have turned it onto flaming arrows at this point because it causes a bigger morale damage, and it actually causes more damage against units in general. So Maximus Decimus Meridius has done some testing, and I have done some testing that shows that fire arrows do more damage than regular bolts for crossbows and regular bows, so probably should have been using that. But either way, we are ripping through this section of their units, and they're going to keep sending more guys, and we've kind of set up in the central plaza here. Some of Oakley's pikes here blocking the gates, preventing them access, and then the rest of his units kind of moving up very slowly in the back there.
And we've actually crushed these pikemen. My Hatari Guard taking a half strength beating, but it was worth it to kill like 3 enemy units. And now I'm going to be chasing them right into the friends of their sort of moving up the streets, and again we're just pulling more guys out of position, and your crossbowmen are going to be perfect in these types of scenarios. And otherwise we're going to be staring down these long hallways, pike against pike, so we're going to try and pick and choose our battles, and they do have some supporting archers actually getting some shots off.
He's going to pull his pikes out a little bit too far and then turn his back. Big mistake there. Going to lose the shield block chance, and my volleys from these Ballistari are just doing so much damage to these units. And one thing he's going to do is he's just going to keep his flank turned to a lot of my Ballistari. He does have this one bow unit, but they don't have great line of sight. They're shooting up into the air, which is not generally what you want to do. If you can get a line of sight on enemy units, the armor piercing kicks in a lot better, the accuracy is a lot better. So he's going to pull up this Gothic Palatina defector as well, and I'm just going to keep shooting into them. Like, I have plenty of ammunition at this point, and Ballistari definitely racking up a lot of kills. So they're going to start shooting again into the flank, the side where they don't have the shield, and you can see in the background me moving the Ballistari to get a better position here. But this volley, or these next couple of volleys into the Gothic Palatina defectors, going to do so much damage. They're at 98 men right now. As soon as I start shooting, I'd say they're at 98 right now. One volley, they're going to lose 10, and they're going to start losing even more men as their HP starts dropping to 0.
Yeah, and one of the advantages we have now as well is you can see our units moving in behind this are all hidden, so they don't actually know how many forces we have left, which kind of explains why they are being so cautious. So we're kind of just doing as much damage as possible with crossbowmen, trying to pull them out of these fortified positions, and then land the strikes with the cavalry if at all possible. And yeah, I think this is going to be the nature of the battle for a little while, so we'll probably go ahead. Oh no, it looks like they're pulling out one of their pikes. So we'll probably watch this engagement, and then we'll skip to the next focal point.
Yeah, so still shooting in there with my Balistari, almost up to 200 kills now. Probably going to get it after this volley, to be honest. And I am shooting into the front of the pike unit, which, I mean, is not ideal. I maybe should be a little bit more conservative with my ammunition at this point, but it is a pike unit in a street, and we can't engage it from the front, so skirmishing it down is basically the only thing we can do. But yeah, just going to shoot them for a bit, and I think we can pause here and go on to the next part of the battle.
Yep. Sounds good. So now we've moved forward, and we were actually able to chew through the pikes and any defenders here, and so they have now a pretty exposed flank, and this is going to be the opportunity for us to charge in with the cavalry, try and exploit this. The enemy is now going to wheel some of their pikemen to sort of block that entrance, and so we're going to try and exploit that. They've opened up too many gaps. This is going to allow us to flood in through here and chase after these unsupported defectors. So you land a good assault, and you actually just boogie on out of there.
Yeah,
that was enough.
I wanted to charge into the Thracian warriors, but I realized with the destroyed buildings right there, they actually weren't going to get a good charge bonus off. And Thracian warriors with their high melee attack, and at least in Rome 2 they had a bonus first large. I'm not sure if they do in this game, but I didn't really want to engage them with my already beaten up general. If I lose my general at this point, that gets really scary. So I just pulled out, as Oakley said, boogie on out of there. And now he's going to pull up his pikes and try to block off the street again. But I'm starting to run out of ammunition with my Balistari, which is a problem.
Yeah, this is a pretty epic sight, actually. It's my pikes just clearing the streets, and they're going to form up for the rest of our infantry. This is the main column, and the opponents are going to charge in here with Thracian warriors. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, oh my god, it's like machine gun fire. They're getting mowed down. So yeah, those guys completely just broke to our pikes. So their pikes are being committed elsewhere, which we've now been able to get us around in that courtyard, having drawn them out. And now we're going to be able to push through here with our combined infantry might against defectors who may be able to beat us, but with the pike support, no, it's going to be to our advantage now.
Yeah, some high-level tactical analysis, guys. Don't charge pikes from the front with anything, especially not Thracian warriors.
Yeah. So while this is happening, the opponents have actually charged in through the back in the other hallways. They figured that, okay, we can't have that many men, and if they're seeing so many of our guys deployed on that side, they're going to push through these other positions. So we had left one Eastern Armored Legio, but he's actually going to start routing by these...
He can't beat this guy by himself. There's no way.
And now the opponents are actually, well, India and I are realizing the danger of this. We're going to pull our forces back, but they've actually deployed some pikes here to keep us from capturing, or for, you know, returning to the city capital to prevent the capture of the city. More of their units are now going to be streaming in, so they've created an avenue for them to just swarm the city center. And we realize, you know, even though we can isolate the rest of those forces and we're winning over there, if we lose the capture point, that's it.
Yeah, this is really scary at this point. This is where things start turning. Like, the balance bar has now made it almost to 50%. It's like 45-55 advantage to them, but we brought it back really close. And we're like, we're starting to get scared here because they're gonna be able to pick off this capture point, and our cavalry can't run through pikes. It's been able to run through everything else in this battle, but it's not just the pikes. They have a full strength Gothic Palatina defector that's only tired, and like I said, that morale penalty and melee attack penalty for my swords is gonna mean they can't cut through them. So if I don't hammer and anvil the Palatina, we aren't going to be able to get back and cut through all these guys to get back to the capture point and prevent them from winning. So we start panicking a little bit here, and we're like, okay, what can we do? What can we do here? Well, we got to pull back everything, but I definitely want to get my cavalry back as quickly as possible. You can see near the, is this the Hippodrome? What is that?
I think so. And you were actually able to break the enemy general, but we also lost our own units. So it's going to be a race to get our cavalry into position. They're going to be reforming some of their pikes, but by moving those pikes, they're actually going to open up our infantry to push on that other position. So we're really just going to try and be like, you know, just push through all of these defenses and somehow find a little crack somewhere to return to the capital.
Yeah, I'm pulling my Scholae Palatine and my Magister Militum back and trying to get them to the capture point soon. And I got scared there because I saw his pikes reforming. I was like, oh, he's going to capture me. I can't get through the street. But then Oakley pointed out to me that we can actually run our units through this broken down shed part right here. So what I'm gonna do is actually, as soon as he tells me that, I'm gonna pull them back up the street, pull them through here, and kill the Germanic hunters and maybe some of the Gothic Palatinate defectors that are now capturing the point in the back. Yeah, I pulled them back probably a little bit too far, but I'm going to move them forward again very soon.
We've been victorious actually in cleaning up the enemy forces on the rest of the battlefield. So now you can see all our guys just running. It doesn't matter if they're exhausted. We're telling them to make haste and make, best time back to the city center. You can see all of our forces running back. And some of these guys were actually sent back before the battle was over. We were actually pulling dudes away from that fight and only left the bare minimum to clean up the enemy forces. My pikes are going to be very crucial actually for this fight. If the enemy has pikes, the best way to combat that is with our own pikes. But they're just going to be here too slow. So the rest of our infantry are pouring into this fight, especially over here, this infantry engagement. We're fighting against the opponents uphill. They're more rested than us. It's going to be hard to break through there, so we need everything possible. And here comes the cav actually for that sneak attack. I don't think the opponents were expecting that. That was pretty funny actually.
Yeah, so we're going to pull them through the little broken down shed here and then get them around and into these sword units. But this Palatinate defector is actually not the most important unit on the field right now. It's actually the one that's holding up the rest of our army over here. And if I didn't get a hammer and anvil off on this defector, no way I'm going to break through them with my Eastern Armor Legio. They're getting beaten up in melee. The Palatinate defectors only lost 6 men in about a minute of combat. So I have no chance of winning that. Gotta kill the swords and the Germanic hunters over here, and then hopefully be able to pull through and get a hammer and anvil off on that unit, and then let the rest of my swords crash through into the capture point.
So you just pretty strategically sacrifice your weaker cavalry force to hold up the Gothic Palatinate defectors, and then you're moving in through with your Magister Militum, taking out the archers to try and keep them from capturing the point. It didn't work, they still took it, so now you're going to disengage, and like you said, kind of remove the block that's keeping us from moving on to the capture point. So if we can get rid of this quick enough, then they can flood the enemy forces back at the city center. So we kind of have to open the front door.
And make no mistake, this is going to be a massive charge from the Magister Militum. Very clean, wide open space for me to get as much speed bonus as I possibly can going into the charge. And we're going to get a nice little close-up of this. Charge over the little barricade right there, into the back of the Palatinate defectors, and that's going to be a dead unit. I mean, there's nothing, and no sword unit in the game is going to be able to withstand a hammer and anvil like that. They're going to rout, and that's going to free up the rest of our units over here, hopefully, and be able to crash in. But there's now a countdown, as you can see at the top there. Defenders' remaining victory points, 83 seconds left in this battle. If we don't take this capture point from them or get more units into the capture point than they have, we lose. And it's counting down really quickly, and we started panicking a lot. We were like, we got to get everyone into melee combat right now. We need to get through the pikes. But how do we get through the pikes? That's the kind of scary thing. Like, these pikes aren't elite by any means. They're just Gothic pikemen. But can our swords and pike units cut through that in time? I don't know, we were kind of freaking out about it at this point.
And actually all our infantry are converging at the same time. You can see your Eastern Armored Legio moving in through the path with the cavalry. Bellistari coming in here, and all our troops are going to kind of run through the front. Enemy pikes are actually going to come in through the flank, so it's kind of everyone coming in at the last moment. He's actually going to decide to pull them back to reinforce his pike line. Probably a smart move. They don't want that to crack. You're going to land a strike on the back with your Magister Militum, and so that's actually going to start breaking those units. The pikes now are going to form into a sandwich. My own guys are coming into this fight to try and break up the enemy pikes. Man, this is going to be super close. The timer left is 18 seconds. We just have to try and break these units. The morale is super low.
I tried dismounting my Magister Militum here just to see if having more infantry units in it actually reduces the capture point. But we were trying everything right now, and the capture point's not going down. I don't know if once you capture it, you actually have to capture it back before it counts down. But we can't break through in time. And they're actually going to win, even though it was 2v3 and we were heavily outnumbered and had the morale disadvantage and had everything against us. If this was real life, which it isn't, of course, it's Total War Attila, but if it was real life, we would have crushed the remaining infantry units and won that battle. Just in reality, capturing a victory point is not going to make the other enemy army lower their arms and stop fighting. But we end up not capturing it in time, and they do win fair and square by the rules of the game.
Man,
and
you're bitter.
we lost. Oh man, I'm mad, son. I was mad. No, it was actually really epic. I mean, it could not have been closer at the end there. Came down to the last couple of units, and he managed to capture it just in time, and we couldn't quite break the circle in time, but really, really epic siege, and I was so happy with the ending there. I mean, I would have been more happy with a win, of course, but and maybe a little butthurt but it was still really epic, I gotta say.
So let's go ahead and look at some of those stats. So just see how many kills. It doesn't tell you the whole army kills, but I mean, look how many forces the enemy brought. We have, I think, a total, yeah, look at that, just 2,400 men. I mean, one of the opponents brought just that many number of men himself. And they have 3 of those armies.
And we killed, well, I don't know, like, my math is bad, but probably like 5,500 or so enemy units here, and didn't lose that much. I mean, we probably killed them about a 3-to-1 ratio or so. And I mean, you can look at the units. Some of our cavalry made a huge impact. His Tagmata cavalry, let's see, it got...
Yeah, 387.
Yeah, 387, 318 on the Clibinari, 359 on the Magister Militum, and 288 on the Haetaria Guards. I don't actually know how to say that, sorry for my bad pronunciation. And then we look at my units, and I have the Scole Palatine with 354, 276 on my Magister Militum. My infantry actually did pretty well considering all the morale and attack debuffs they had, but even though I lost all my Ballistari at the beginning of that battle, I lost like half of them at the beginning. 268 kills, 103 kills made a huge impact there as well. And then we look at their kills, not super impressive. In fact, a lot of their units kind of got thrown away, to be honest. But at the end of the day, they did what they needed to. They moved in the capture point and prevented us from being able to take it back. So well played to them. I mean, I like these kind of sieges way more than even ones where it's like 3v3 or 4v4. When you're outnumbered or limit your funds, I just think it makes for much more epic, much closer games, and this was definitely no exception. I think this has got to be, and I'm not a biased source at all, one of the most exciting sieges on YouTube. So I hope you guys enjoyed what you watched, because I certainly enjoyed playing it. It was a lot of fun.
All right, we'll see you guys for the next one, and we're up for suggestions for what types of battles or scenarios you'd like to see in the future. Thanks so much. We'll see you guys next time.
See you all later.